Welcome to College Football Night, guys. Anyway, this is week, I believe, number 4. Um, but let's get right into it. We've got, of course, the story of the day should be the win for Iowa State over Oklahoma. It is their first win, I believe, since in about 60 years since they beat Oklahoma in Ames, Iowa. I, of course, watched a lot of that game. I know people that went to that game. It was a fun night. And I think the takeaway is that the Big 12 is wide open this year. Currently, it's Oklahoma State on top, but Iowa State, of course, in the conference standings are tied for the lead. We look at the standings in conference play. It is Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. All three 2-0. And the 0-2 teams, of course, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech. They're all 0-2, and the rest are 1-1. This is a wide open conference in the Big 12. Now we did have a lot of them drop non-conference games, which is very bad. A lot of those non-conference games were against the Sun Belt, which is not a good conference when you look at it historically. Now, maybe it's an up year for Sun Belt, but certainly you can't afford to be losing to a Sun Belt team. Okay, but it's a really bad day for Oklahoma, really bad day for Texas, and quite frankly, I think the Big 12 is out of the playoff today. Certainly Oklahoma State, if they're on the table, they're in the playoff. I think Oklahoma State can run the table and get in the playoff, but the teams that Oklahoma State has played so far, West Virginia and Kansas, those are not contenders in the Big 12 this year. West Virginia is all right. Kansas is awful. Let's be honest. Kansas is not going to be fixed. Les Miles is not fixing Kansas. It'll take a few more years, and they'll be about the same level as Texas Tech or West Virginia. They'll be still that bottom half, but they'll be competing, hopefully, if you're Les Miles in Kansas. Now, Oklahoma State, they struggled against Tulsa in the opener. They have a tough stretch coming up, of course. Within a month, they're going to get Iowa State, Texas, K-State, and Oklahoma, all within like 5 weeks. 4 weeks, I don't know. The math within 5 weeks, they're going to get all 4 of those teams. And I don't see them winning all 4 of those. All right. Let's move on to the other conferences. The SEC, of course, today. They have probably the most games because they have the most teams of any conferences playing. They have the same as the Big Ten. The Big Ten is not playing right now. Actually, the ACC has the most teams, but there are a lot of teams that are off this week in the ACC. We look in the SEC, of course, Florida with the win, Tennessee with the win pretty easily for those 2 teams. Alabama was a dominant win over Texas A&M, and Jimbo Fisher really in question right now. Is he the right guy for A&M? And I don't know if you're going to get an answer from me or not, but I think certainly A&M needed to put up better performance than they did today. They were okay for the first quarter, but then it just really collapsed quickly. And of course, Georgia just flattened Auburn. Auburn looked very, very bad today against Georgia. Certainly, they're not a top 10 team in the country. I don't know if Georgia's a top 5 team right now, but I think by the end of the year they can get there. They still have questions at quarterback, but they're figuring it out. They're going to get to where they need to be. Auburn, this better be their low point of the season, otherwise it's going to get real ugly. And of course, LSU beat Vanderbilt. Arkansas I would say is definitely one of my winners of the day, beating Mississippi State on the road. First SEC win in 3 years for Arkansas. Tulsa over UCF, that's another one of my 3 winners. Tulsa, they probably should have and could have beaten Oklahoma State. They beat UCF today and become really one of the best teams in the American at this point in the season. And of course, Iowa State over Oklahoma. That is my 3rd winner. I would say that's my number 1 winner of the day, Iowa State. 2 straight games where Iowa State wins. Wasn't great last week, but it was good enough. And again today, they looked solid. I feel like Iowa State's defense in the second half, you got to a point where they could actually get stops. They could actually stop Oklahoma's offense. And normally, with the performance that we saw tonight, I think Oklahoma just that one turnover, which of course cost them the game. If Oklahoma is turning the ball over one time, they're probably going to score 40 points. Oh, Iowa State held them to 30, which isn't, of course, great, but considering some breaks that they got in the first half, especially the second half defense for Iowa State. I wouldn't consider the first half a great half. The second half was a great half for Iowa State. Just one touchdown allowed in the second half. And those are my 3 winners. Iowa State, Arkansas, and Tulsa are my 3 winners of the day. I think you can honorable mention Alabama, but we already know Alabama is really the cream of the crop in the SEC this year. They should be the team to beat Florida. I don't think Florida's really played anybody to this point. They had Ole Miss last week. They had South Carolina today. They'll get A&M and they'll get LSU the next 2 Saturdays, and we'll really know how they are come week after Halloween when they take on Georgia. But if they can head into November, if they can head into November unbeaten, Florida will be a danger. They finished up against Tennessee, so that could end up being a big game. I really don't know who's going to win the SEC East, but it seems like it's a 3-team race: Florida, Georgia, Tennessee right now. SEC West, I think Alabama is clearly on top right now. What do we got here? In the SEC West, they are the only 2-0 team in the SEC West. They're a game ahead of everybody else. But of course, head to head, if you beat Alabama, you're tied with them. At this point, everybody else 1-1 in the SEC West. SEC East, you got 3 2-0 teams, and everybody else is 0-2. So clear separation there. All right. I think that is it for us. Of course, next Saturday features Tennessee and Georgia. I expect Georgia to come out on top, but it's going to be a good one. Certainly, we know that. Also, next Saturday is the Red River Showdown, which doesn't seem that good right now. Texas and Oklahoma, that's 11 a.m. Central Time live on Fox. And then prime time, it's Miami against Clemson. I think Clemson will roll. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it has been, but Clemson's certainly going to get it done next Saturday night. And then, of course, if you look ahead, LSU will get Florida, and Georgia gets Bama in 2 weeks. We got that Georgia-Bama game, which, of course, is going to be SEC prime time. As we head closer, week 8 is when the Big Ten will be back, and we'll have Nebraska, Ohio State, really to lead that week off. Week 8, of course, going to be a great time to be a Hawkeye or to be a Big Ten fan. And then the Pac-12 will be back, which we, of course, had the schedule release today, and we heard ASU USC is going to be an 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff, 9 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. What is that, 6 a.m. Hawaii time? I don't know. Just let's say if you're in Hawaii, you bet if you don't wake up early, you're gonna miss the game. Okay, so that will do it for us. I just want to quick note on the NFL. There have been a lot of changes. Probably want to follow me on Twitter at Jared the Bear. And of course, will be posting updates on the NFL. We know there has been a game postponed. Tennessee and Pittsburgh has been postponed to week 7, and New England, Kansas City, that is still expected to be played on Monday or Tuesday. We don't quite know which one is the best option, but this could all shake up by tomorrow, and we could be in a very different situation in just 5 hours. I really don't know what's going to happen. But this is obviously a day-to-day kind of thing, and we should expect the best, expect the worst at the same time, because we really don't know what to expect. This is certainly an unprecedented situation that we're in right now, and of course, Bears Colts has been moved